The thing about living on a ranch 5 miles from the nearest neighbor is you start making your own entertainment and trouble. That's how I ended up writing a fake mail order husband letter one evening with my best friend, who's also my adopted sister. Cora and I had nothing better to do. We were drinking spiked peach tea by candlelight, laughing over the ridiculous ads in the back of the Gazette that Papa had delivered that morning. Cora snorted, waving the classifieds like they'd personally insulted her. So, prove it. Write one. I dare you. I did. Wanted. One emotionally unavailable man with tragic eyes, strong shoulders, and no opinions about curtains. Must enjoy silence, sarcasm, and pretending we don't like each other in public. Bonus points if you hate small talk. Can chop wood with brooding intensity and carry emotional damage from a long-lost fiancé. Must not mind dogs or sisters who bake peach pies with cayenne pepper. Must never use the phrase, "that's a nice bonnet." Will be tolerated best if capable of riding, fencing, pretending feelings don't exist, and remaining shirtless in the summer months. If you enjoy awkward silences, shared chores, and intense glares across the dinner table, congratulations. You might be the answer to my sins. Sincerely, Miss Jo Hartford. Spinster, horse hater, and general ranch-bred menace. I signed it with a dramatic flourish, kissed the corner like a fool, and held it up like a trophy. Ta-da! Cora hiccuped, laughing. "Joe, that is a work of art." I smiled and tossed it toward the fireplace. "It's going in the fire." And that's when Biscuit made his move. My sheepdog had padded in, silent as sin, tail swishing like a metronome. Before I could blink, he'd snatched the envelope off the floor and bolted like he'd robbed a bank. "Biscuit!" I screamed, but he was gone. I tore after him, barefoot and cursing. He zigzagged through the yard like he was herding ghosts, around the feed cart, under the wheelbarrow, spinning back around. When I finally caught him behind the chicken coop, I was doubled over, breath catching from laughter. He dropped it at my feet like a prize. I stared at it like it might combust. Bending slowly, I brushed the hay off. Thankfully, it was still sealed. I pressed it to my chest for a second. "Not today," I muttered, voice catching. I couldn't bring myself to burn it, so I stuffed it deep in my drawer beneath my underthings. 3 weeks later, a man rode up to our gate like a dare, and a bad idea had summoned him. He was tall, dusty, the kind of man you'd expect to see on the cover of a dime novel, except he was real. Very, very real. Biscuit took one look and trotted straight to him, tail wagging like he'd just found the Messiah. The man dismounted, tied off his horse, and knocked on the fence post like he owned the place. I stepped off the porch slowly, jaw tight, hand twitching toward the pitchfork, until I saw he wasn't armed, just smirking. "Miss Hartford?" he asked, removing his hat with a low, deliberate bow. "That depends on who's asking." He held up my envelope, wrinkled, smudged, unmistakable. "I came about the letter." I froze. My stomach flipped, slowly and sickly. The sight of that God-forsaken letter wiped the smile off my face. "What letter?" I lied. He smiled, like this was the fun part. "I didn't place the ad, if that's what you're thinking. My sister did. But I read the replies." He tapped the envelope. "Yours stood out." Another bow. "Caleb Knox. At your service, ma'am." His eyes sparkled, and I hated that he was charming and easy on the eyes. "That letter was never meant to be mailed," I said flatly. "Well," he said, tilting his head, "someone mailed it." Biscuit dropped at his feet with a grunt, like this was no big deal. I was going to kill Cora. Twice. And just like that, folks, This drop-dead, gorgeous man stepped into my life, bold as brass. I thought he'd leave when I told him it was a joke. When I made it real clear I hadn't ordered a man off the frontier like he was a bolt of fabric. Caleb Knox just leaned on the porch rail as if he belonged there. My heart missed a beat. Men with shoulders like barns and voices like river stones were not a regular feature in my world. "I think I'll stay the night," he said. "Don't worry, I'll sleep in the barn." I blinked. "You'll do no such thing." His eyes narrowed slightly as if I were something to solve. "You afraid of a little scandal, Joe?" My jaw tensed. I looked away, pressing my lips tight. The name landed somewhere between a slap and a shiver. "Don't call me that." He smiled, slow and sure. "It's in the letter. Page 2, near the end." I stiffened. My pulse jumped. I nearly lunged for the envelope, but he tucked it into his coat like it was something worth keeping. That's when I stormed inside. Biscuit trailed behind like he hadn't just committed treason. Cora was on the back veranda shelling peas. "You mailed it," I shouted. She didn't even look up. "Good afternoon to you, too." "You mailed it," I repeated. Her lips twitched. She popped a pea into her mouth like she was at a church picnic instead of the center of a domestic betrayal. "Didn't know you'd miss it. You're welcome." She looked up at me, big brown eyes, that sly, slow grin, all mischief, no remorse. "You wrote it," she said. "He just showed up to see if you meant it." I didn't. "I know." She smiled. "But maybe you should have." My chest tightened. I swallowed hard, and turning, I stomped through the house to find Pa. He was on the porch bench, inspecting a broken stirrup with one hand and holding a cup of tea with the other. Sun-weathered skin, broad frame, quiet strength, the kind of man who didn't say much and judged even less. Caleb was already walking toward him. "Sir," he said politely. "Name's Caleb Knox. Heard you might be looking for a ranch hand." I nearly tripped over Biscuit. "No, he's not," I blurted. Papa raised one brow, slowly. "I'm not?" "He's here because of a joke," I hissed. "He's not qualified." Caleb handed him the letter. My stomach flipped like a bad hand of cards. "Traitor," I muttered. Biscuit lay down at Caleb's feet like the verdict was already in. Papa squinted at the letter. Then he laughed, loud, deep, the laugh that always made me laugh too, but not this time. "Well, I'll be," he said. "Josephine, you really ought to write novels." "Papa." He waved me off. "We lost Jenkins last month. You know I'm short, Joe." "That's not a real reason." "Sure it is," Caleb said smoothly. Papa turned to him. "Lead hand, got married, a girl with 12 siblings and a family plot, poor man's doomed." Caleb stepped forward and they shook like it was already a done deal. I stood there like I'd been slapped with a sock. So that's how Caleb Knox became the newest worker at Hartford Ranch. And I, Josephine Hartford, made it my mission to get rid of him. Behind me, Cora reappeared with a piece of cornbread, grinning like she'd orchestrated the whole thing. "So," she said lightly, "what's he like up close?" "Too tall." "Handsome?" she asked. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The truth was, he looked nothing like a mail-order husband. He was smarter, and those slate-gray eyes looked like they were used to getting their way. My breath caught when he and Pa walked toward the barn, and Caleb turned and winked at me. Cora squeezed my arm. "You look rattled." I scratched my wrist like something was itching under the skin. "I'm fine." "Sure you are." She bumped my shoulder. "You'll thank Pa one day." Then she disappeared back inside, leaving me to glare after the retreating men. There's something about a man who looks good with an axe that makes a woman forget her objections. Briefly, very, very briefly, and Caleb Knox may as well have been shirtless in my front yard, chopping wood. I stood on the porch, empty mug in hand, trying to remember how to breathe. His back muscles moved like they'd been carved by hard labor and mule stubbornness. His hair was damp with sweat, and those jeans sat too well on his hips. He was all male, all menace, and the worst part was, he knew it. My breath caught. I gripped the mug a little too tightly, fingertips blanching around the handle. "Stop staring," said Cora from behind me. "I'm glaring." "Oh, that's what we're calling it now?" I tried to sip from the empty mug, mostly to hide the way my ears were burning. "I hate him," I muttered. "He's charming and smug and you're halfway in love with him." I turned on her, fast. My chest tightened like I couldn't get a full breath. "I am not." "Tell your eyes that." I marched over to him, cheeks hot, the hem of my skirt kicking up dust. Caleb didn't pause, didn't glance up. His axe rose and fell, wood cracking clean through. "You can't just make yourself at home." "I'm earning my keep," he said casually, like he didn't feel my glare land between his shoulder blades. "You're embarrassing me in front of the neighbors." He stopped swinging, rested the axe on his shoulder like it weighed nothing. "Your nearest neighbors are 5 miles away, Joe." "Josephine, to you, and that's not the point." He turned slowly, eyes sharp, steady, like he'd been waiting for me to come closer. "What is your point, Joe?" My throat tightened. That letter wasn't real. His voice dropped low, quiet, and somehow it landed under my ribs. "Maybe not, but by the look on your face right now, it is." I opened my mouth, shut it. My pulse hammered in my ears. I looked away first. "Your pa gave me a week's trial," he said. "Let's see who breaks first." Then he winked and walked off, trailing sawdust and insolence like breadcrumbs behind him. I didn't like him. I didn't. But I also didn't sleep well that night. Some fences can never be fixed. It was the northeast fence, the one that sagged like it had opinions. We'd patched it, hammered it, prayed over it, and it still leaned like a drunk uncle at a barn dance. Naturally, Caleb offered to fix it. "No," I said, flatly. "Yes," Papa said at the same time. He didn't even look up from his saddle work. "He's got 2 good hands and better eyes than I do. Let the man be useful." "He's a stranger," Papa snorted, which meant I'd already lost. "He's already fixed more than Jenkins ever did." So off we went, Caleb and I. He, with his infuriating smile, 2 neat shirt, and that smug confidence he wore like a badge. I followed a few paces behind, gripping a hammer I felt like planting in his skull. Biscuit trotted ahead, scouting for squirrels. His tail wagged like this was the highlight of his week. "You don't have to supervise," Caleb said over his shoulder. "I'm not." He chuckled, low and warm, and it made something uncomfortable shift behind my ribs. "Are you always this angry?" he asked. "Only when strange men show up answering joke letters and start charming my father?" "I'm not charming. I'm helping." "Same thing in your case." We reached the fence. It seemed to have given up on life years ago. The rails were splintered, the posts cracked at the base. One good wind, and it would have keeled over completely. Caleb studied it like a man sizing up a bar fight. Then, without comment, he dropped to one knee and started working. And damn it, he was good. No wasted motion, no fumbling, just quiet, practiced efficiency. Every nail he drove in felt like it echoed in my chest. Annoying, rhythmic, steady. I leaned on the far post, arms crossed, trying not to watch him too closely. The sun hit his dark hair just enough to make it shine. My throat felt tight. "You ever wonder," he said after a while, "what would have happened if Cora hadn't posted that letter?" "No," I lied. He smiled without looking at me. "Liar." I clenched my jaw and looked away. After a while, I reached down and handed him a nail. Our fingers brushed, just for a second. We both went still. Then he took it like nothing had happened. We continued like that for a while. No talking, just the sound of wood and hammer. It was too quiet, too natural, too dangerous. "I should get back," I said abruptly. "Cora's baking." "She still put cayenne in her peach pies?" he asked. I blinked. "How do you know that?" He tapped his coat pocket. "Letter." I flushed. Every ridiculous, sarcastic thing I'd written. He'd read all of it and remembered. I spun on my heel, heat crawling up the back of my neck, and stomped off. "Joe?" he called after me. I paused, just long enough to let my breath catch. "I'm not what you wanted," he said. "But I'm here. That counts for something, doesn't it?" I didn't answer, because it did, and that was the problem. The Caldwell family had 6 daughters and no sense of boundaries. I was minding my own business at the Sunday social when Mama Caldwell cornered me like a bounty hunter with a mission. "Josephine," she said sweetly, "you must meet my Emmeline. She's just turned 18, a vision in peach, and such a soft heart. You two would get on beautifully." I blinked. "You think I should be friends with your daughter?" She tilted her head. I was thinking more along the lines of sisters, once she and Mr. Knox get to know each other, of course. "Pardon?" "Emmeline's sweet on Mr. Knox," she said with a wink. "And I hear he's available." My pulse jumped. I panicked. "Number he's not. He's married." Mama Caldwell froze. Her lips parted slightly, like she'd caught a whiff of scandal. "He is?" I looked around for a way out. There wasn't one. "Yes, to me," I blurted. A pause. Beside me, Cora nearly dropped her cup. "What?" Across the yard, Caleb was leaning on a fence post, calm as a cat. His head lifted, slowly, like he'd just heard a gun cock. He started walking over, measured, unhurried, smirking. I stepped on his boot the moment he arrived. He didn't blink. "That's right," he said, voice even. "Best decision I ever made," he said smoothly, eyes not leaving mine. And that was that. The lie sprouted legs and galloped. We were congratulated, hugged. Later, behind the barn, I cornered him. "Why didn't you correct them?" He shrugged, like this happened all the time. He looked almost amused, but there was something else under it, something quieter. Like maybe he didn't hate the idea as much as he should have. Didn't seem polite. It's a lie. Then why did it sound so natural? I gritted my teeth. I panicked. "You walked over like you'd rehearsed it." He leaned in, just enough to pull the breath from my lungs. "I don't mind pretending," he said, "but you're not very good at lying." I crossed my arms. I tried not to notice how he smelled of wood smoke and sin. "I don't even like you." "Sure, you do." I stormed off, flustered, humiliated, and the tiniest bit thrilled, which, of course, made me furious all over again. The cook was sick. She had come down with a head cold that left her woozy. Papa said we'd manage. Cora said she could try. And Caleb volunteered. I don't know what was more insulting, that he offered or that everyone agreed. "You can't even boil coffee," I snapped as he rolled up his sleeves. "Didn't say I was a chef," he replied, pulling out flour like it was dynamite. "Just said I'd try. Trying leads to fires." I once cooked for 14 men and a blind mule during a cattle drive. That explains so much. He grinned. The worst part was, it reached his eyes. I crossed my arms. To my horror, Caleb moved with actual competence. He cracked eggs with one hand, measured by sight. He hummed while he worked. I narrowed my eyes. "With cayenne? Only if I want to impress you." I hated the way my stomach flipped. I leaned against the counter, part glare, part anchor. "Who taught you to cook?" He shrugged. "My ma, before she passed." That landed differently. He didn't flinch when he said it, but something in the air shifted, like he'd opened a door and didn't wait to see if I'd walk through. I nodded once. Mine ran off. His eyes met mine. No pity, just understanding. Two kinds of leaving, same ache. "You don't have to keep trying so hard, you know," I said softly. He slid the biscuits into the oven and wiped his hands on a towel. "I'm not." I blinked. "Then what are you doing?" He turned, leaned back against the counter, looked at me. Looked. "I'm staying, that's all." I didn't know what to do with that, so I said the only thing I could. "You better not burn our skillet." He smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. I wasn't avoiding him. I was just picking apples on the far side of the property where no one could find me. Different thing. The orchard always smelled better this time of year. Sun-warmed fruit, drying leaves, a whisper of wind that made you forget things for a while, which is why I was there, not hiding, not thinking about Caleb, and definitely not replaying those stupid moments in the kitchen. I was halfway up a ladder when I heard him. "Caleb." "Nice hiding spot," he said casually, voice drifting through the branches. I nearly dropped the apple I was reaching for. "I'm not hiding," I muttered. "Sure." He leaned against the tree next to mine, looking like a man who belonged in places without walls. I kept picking. He said nothing, and somehow that said everything. Then, without warning, I missed my step. The ladder shifted, just a little, and I slipped. Strong hands caught me before I hit the ground, and for one stupid, breathless second, our lips brushed. Not a kiss, not really, but close enough to steal every thought from my head. I pulled back like I'd been burned. My boots hit the ground. I yanked myself free. "I'm fine," I snapped, breath sharp. Caleb didn't say anything. He just looked at me. Steady, unreadable, maddening. I turned away fast, grabbing the nearest basket like it owed me an apology. "I'm going," I muttered. "Cora's probably looking for me." He didn't follow. Didn't need to. The feel of his hands stayed on my arms long after I walked away. It was supposed to be a quick trip into town, 2 hours by wagon and 3 kinds of dusty. We went for supplies. Caleb was fetching grain and fencing nails. Cora and I tagged along to pick out fabric for new aprons. That's all it was. We just stepped out of the mercantile, arms full of lace, cotton, when I heard a voice, high, sharp, familiar in a way I didn't like. "Caleb?" He turned slightly. Shoulders stiffened. The woman striding up to him had the kind of presence you could bottle and charge rent for. Tall, polished, red lips, hat with a feather. She stopped short, one gloved hand fluttering near her collarbone. "Well, I'll be. What are you doing out here?" "Charlotte," Caleb said with a polite nod. "You didn't mention you'd be down this way," she said, eyeing him like a stake. I thought you were still up north, handling things on the property. Property? Cora and I froze halfway down the boardwalk, arms still full of our shopping. Charlotte glanced at us, then back at him. I'm sorry, I don't believe we've been introduced. He hesitated, just a second too long. This is Josephine, he said finally. And Cora. Charlotte blinked. Oh, ranch girls? I swallowed. You could say that. She turned back to Caleb, oblivious, or didn't care. Well, I'll be in town a few days if you want to meet for coffee or something stronger. She smiled, then added, too lightly, Your fiancé would love to know you're out here playing cowboy. She walked off with a click of her heels. The silence was worse than shouting. Cora turned slowly. Fiancé? I didn't move, couldn't breathe. The fabric in my arms suddenly felt like it weighed a ton. Caleb looked at me, calm as ever, too calm, without looking sorry. It's not what it sounds like, he said. Really? My voice snapped. Because it sounds like you came here under false pretenses, stayed in my house, took my father's trust, and let half the county believe we're married. You made that up, he said quietly. And you didn't stop me? Cora touched my arm gently. Joe. I shook my head. Let's go home. The road back from town was quiet. The wagon creaked, the horses plodded. No one spoke. All I could think about was that he had a fiancé, and how much I hated wanting to know what that meant. When we reached the ranch gate, I jumped down first. Didn't wait for help. Didn't say a word. Tears blurred my vision as I ran inside. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to calmly, clearly, and maturely demand answers. So naturally, I started by yanking the bunkhouse door open. Caleb looked up from folding a shirt. His face gave nothing away. You lied, I said. I didn't. You let me lie. Let the town think we were... I couldn't even finish. He set the shirt down. Joe, don't say my name like that. How should I say it? I ignored the bait. You have a ranch. You have a fiancé. I don't. Then what was she talking about? He ran a hand through his hair. Charlotte was an arrangement, years ago, something my sister and her father came up with. It never stuck, but Charlotte liked pretending it did. And you didn't think I'd want to know that before I introduced you as my husband in public? I didn't think it mattered. He paused. I didn't think you would care. That landed like a punch. I crossed my arms. So that's what this is? A game? A few weeks of fun before you ride off to your real life? No. You sure? Because I don't know who you are, Caleb. I thought I did. But now you've got secrets, land, a past. What else? He stepped closer. You know me better than anyone ever has. I backed up. I don't, I whispered. I came because of that letter, he said. I stayed because of you. My throat tightened. I didn't mean to, he began. That makes two of us. He looked at me, raw and honest. You said you wanted someone who didn't have opinions about curtains, who wouldn't ask too many questions. I also said it was a joke, I snapped. We've got that in common, at least. I shook my head. I can't do this, Caleb. Not if you're not telling me everything. I'm not perfect. I didn't ask for perfect. He nodded once, jaw clenched. Then I'll leave. And before I could think of anything to say, he stepped past me. He was leaving, and for once, I didn't have a smart thing to say. Just one chance not to mess it up. I watched his back as he walked away, and I stood there, still as stone, while the man I hadn't meant to fall for kept walking toward the edge of something I wasn't ready to lose. Caleb. He didn't stop. Caleb, wait. He turned, slow, careful, like he wasn't sure I meant it. I don't want you to go, I said. His jaw tightened. You just told me. I know what I said, but I also know how I feel. I crossed the space fast, my heart caught in my throat. I stopped inches from him. You came because of a joke, but you stayed, and you fixed things. Fences, doors. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. I never asked about your life, I said quietly, because I didn't want this to feel like a deal. I have land, he said. 4 hours north, not as big as this, but mine. I don't care, and I meant it. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my cheek. Joe, and that was all it took. I leaned in. He met me halfway, and we kissed. Not polite, not careful, not pretend. It was every unsaid word, every fight, every glance, every touch, all wrapped into one. His hands tangled in my hair. Mine gripped his shirt like I needed it to breathe. And when we finally pulled apart, just long enough to catch a breath, he pressed his forehead to mine. I was yours the minute I read that letter. I laughed, I cried, and I kissed him again. Sometimes the right person arrives when we're too proud to ask and too scared to hope. But love? It has a way of waiting until we're brave enough to reach for it. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, stay safe.